All right, good evening. Please do let me know if you can hear me clearly in the comment section. Just in the chat, if you can put in like a one or a two, that will be amazing. Actually, put one if you can hear me clearly. I was going to do this as a recorded video, but if I'm honest, time is not my friend right now. I am so rushed off my feet, but this was something I wanted to talk about either way. So if you can hear me and you're with me live, please put a one in the chat. Let's just jump straight into this. We know that obviously there's going to be a lot of change coming in October as we await the budget from Rachel Reeves. And there's been a lot of conjecture, a lot of speculation around the kind of things that she is going to target: CGT, IHT, whether they're going to bring pensions into the inheritance tax kind of arena. Then there's this as well, which speaks directly to obviously pensions, but on the pension contribution levels for employers. And what they're basically saying in this headline is, let me just share this screen with you right here, is that Rachel Reeves is tipped to launch a £16 billion tax rate on pension contributions. And she's planning, or she is purported to do this by adding fees, or at least a tax for employers. Let me just read you this section here, which it kind of explains how it works. So currently, employees pay an NI rate of 8% on earnings between 224 and £967 a week, and 2% thereafter. Employers pay 13.8% on all earnings above £175 per week. But no national insurance is levied on either the worker or the firm if the same remuneration is paid into a pension. So there's a little bit of a, I wouldn't say in a loophole, it's kind of like an allowance that is applied. Now, what is being suggested is that that allowance will basically be removed. And what they're basically saying here is that the extent to which this costs the government every single year cost the government about £23.8 billion a year to provide this kind of allowance, this relief, right? It's saying here, however, Ms. Reeves may choose to exempt public sector employees from that tax rate and basically put it on private employers to foot the bill. And this is going to raise £16 billion for the Treasury. Now, I like to talk about pensions. As you probably know, pensions is something that I'm really, really passionate about. I think anything around pension contributions, how pensions work, pension allowances, pensions reliefs, those things, if they are impacted, potentially disincentivize people from saving into a pension and to take charge of their own retirement plans for the future. We know with auto enrollment and a lot of other initiatives that have come out over the past decade or so, this is a real focus for the government. It has been a real focus for the government, getting people to take charge of their own retirement plans so that they're not going to be dependent on the state pension. And this is why I have a problem with this. If this is true, and if this is something that actually happens, what will happen is it will cost the business more money. Businesses that have to pay, find the gap for this is going to cost them more money, which raises business cost, which effectively will mean that a handful of things can happen. Either first, no more pay rises, or they decide, well, we're not going to pay as much into your pensions on your behalf as we probably would or should. Bearing in mind also enrollment 3% minimum for employers, they may decide, okay, we're going to keep it to that. If you have any matching, we'll scrap that. We're not going to give you that additional money if we have to do this. There is always going to be a cost to these types of things. And I know that we're in dire straits as a nation at this point in time. I'd love to know in the comment section what you actually think of this. I know that we're scrambling around for revenue, for tax revenue. I completely get it. But in a world where we're trying to get people less reliant on the state pension itself is a big, big problem because of the triple lock. I mean, so look, these are the choices. They could have reneged on the triple lock. They haven't done that because, rightly so, pensioners who have paid into the system should be allowed to have that promise because it's been promised. So they didn't renege on that. They know that it's going to cost them more money, certainly fiscally, for the foreseeable future, which is why the state pension age is being urged to be pushed back to 71. They're kicking the can down the road, essentially. But in the immediacy, it means that pension reliefs, contribution reliefs, those things have to be targeted. Those things have to be removed. But I feel as though because the state pension burden is so large, and people are living longer, people may not be living healthier, people are living longer. We're effectively disincentivizing people who should be paying quite aggressively into a pension now, disincentivizing them from doing it so they become even more reliant on the state pension later on in life. And I do have a question for you in this, actually, which I'd love to ask your opinion on, just in the poll for those of you who are with me live. Is this something that you would accept in the short term if it meant that in the long term we had some kind of assurance that things would get better? That's the question I want to ask you. So it's a yes or no question. Just there it is in the poll. Just indulge me for a moment, because if you've been paying attention to some of the news and some of the stuff that's coming out from the IFS, which is the Institute for Fiscal Studies, they're saying that we have now got the highest tax burden since for 70 years, and it's likely to remain at this level for the next few decades. And the reason for that is because of the pressure on public spending, on the government's purse, state pension, the NHS, health, just public services generally. The cost of these things is getting larger and larger and larger. It's not shrinking. And it doesn't matter how many efficiencies they try to introduce. The simple fact is we don't have enough money to cover that bill. The other thing which is really disturbing with this is the fact that one of Labour's big party manifestos has been, well, look, we are going to be the party that will try to grow the economy. If you do this and employers have to foot the bill for this by taking away this allowance, how are you going to grow the economy? Because these companies need that money to invest. And that's not to say that all of them would invest necessarily, but it's an additional business cost. And that doesn't necessarily facilitate economic growth. And I've said this before on this channel, way before the election. We need really bold ideas. We need really bold ideas from an economic point of view in terms of how we're going to grow this economy now that we're not obviously within Europe and we're out of the single market. How are we actually going to do that? Tangible plans. Because if all we've got to hang our hat on is we're going to raise taxes, we're going to introduce some spending cuts, then we're screwed as a nation. And no wonder people want to leave. And I think we're just in this really difficult position right now where the next few weeks are going to be really interesting. Tomorrow is the 1st of October. So we're counting down, 30-day countdown to whatever these will be. And my sincere hope is that with everything that we've heard about, we actually get to the day and it's not as bad. Part of me expects that to be the case. And part of me expects that to be the case because they know that they're going to have to do something pretty painful. So why not say we're going to do all of this painful stuff? And when we do introduce the painful stuff that we have to do, it's not as painful as we have led you to believe it to be. So maybe there's a little bit of psychology going on here. And again, these are just rumors at this point in time. These are just conjectures. We don't actually know for sure. But still, you have to ask, how did we get to this point? I mean, I am just absolutely shocked. I'm just looking at the poll right now for those of you who are joining me live, and 70% of you are basically saying no, that you would not accept this in the short term, even if there was a long-term benefit. And I'm kind of with you. I think because we've been here before, nothing feels like it's gotten better in any way, shape, or form over the past decade or so. Things feel like they're going to get much, much worse. So why should you have to foot the bill and suffer? And by the way, whilst we're talking about dire straits and the state of things, the energy price cap goes up tomorrow. And they're carrying on with winter fuel payments. I was reading an article earlier today saying that there will be an additional, I think it was 40,000 homes or 400,000 homes thrown into energy poverty this winter because of that. And we've got the energy price going up tomorrow by another 10%, taking the average household bill to 1,717 quid. And that's just on average. So for most people, it's going to be much, much more expensive to heat your home this Christmas. It's absolutely crazy. where we are right now. And how did we get here? Now, I think I'll probably end this on just a thought. During the election, if you watch me, I mentioned in a couple of videos that, the guys from the IFS and a number of bodies were saying, look, they're not being honest with the true scale of the challenge that we face as a country. And they're kind of deliberately not talking about the challenges that we face. And I said, I would have much rather have had that conversation, or at least heard how bad things are before the election, before we voted, to decide which way we wanted to vote. But it was a conspiracy of silence, as it was kind of like touted. I wonder now, if we had had that conversation early on, whether people would have done things differently, whether the vote would have been different. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know that the Tories would have done anything different to what Labour are doing right now. And I don't know that the Lib Dems or the Green Party or whoever would have won this election if not Labour would be doing anything differently right now. They might go about things slightly differently in terms of, okay, maybe we don't, cut off winter fuel payments for the most vulnerable in our society and, tell people to lump it, all the while we're getting £20,000 freaking donations for like our clothes. I mean, that in itself is just infuriating, right? I mean, you tell me how you feel. But when you look at it this way, the people who are inflicting the pain under the guise that this will make everything better for the populace are there in their ivory towers taking donations of tens of thousands of pounds for clothes, for fucking parties, for all sorts of stuff. And they expect ordinary people. And I'm pretty privileged. I'm okay. I'm comfortable. I'm not really going to do any of this, but I know people who are. You tell it to a grandma who's worked all of her freaking life to build up a pension, rely on the state because she's paid into the system, to realize, well, actually, hang on a second, I'm struggling with my bills, my winter bills. You can't have your £300 winter fuel payment this year. And now you have to choose between eating and heating your home. It's infuriating. How the fuck did we get here? Honestly. And the more I talk about this, the more it makes me angry. And I'm sure that it makes a lot of people angry here as well. Again, I'm just going to end this poll. 61% of you said no, you would not be willing to put up with this. I just think I'm going to say what I've always said for the time that I've had this channel here for the past 4 years. But look, there are lots of things that we cannot control. So controlling the controllables is really key. And I'm almost tired of saying that now, because for certain people, you naturally try to control your controllables, but there's only so many things you can control before it gets to the point where actually it's overwhelming. So controlling the controllable feels like it's almost a platitude now. That's what it feels like. Honestly, it really, really does. And come the end of October, it's going to be a really tough year. It's going to be a tough year through 2025. And I just hope, I really, really do, that we see the inflation numbers come down. Core inflation is really, really stubborn. That's my big concern. Core inflation is really, really stubborn. It doesn't seem to be budging. Inflation is reported to go up by the end of this year to 2.5%, which means that the bank rate is going to remain stagnant. God forbid next year, due to a number of factors. I mean, Israel are eminently looking to invade Lebanon. If that happens and Iran throws in, Iraq throws in, there are so many factors that could lead to oil prices going up, energy prices going up even more. And what does that do? That spikes inflation. If that spikes inflation and the bank rate and fiscal policy, monetary policy, I should say, has to then change, boy, we're in for a tough time. Because the minute monetary policy changes and the bank rate starts to go up, mortgage rates start to go back up, and the high levels of debt we have in this country from a personal household point of view, a lot of people are going to be underwater. A lot of people are hanging their hat on mortgage rates coming down, as 800,000 households in the UK get to the point where they're staring down the barrel of their mortgages going up to the tune of £300, £400, £500 a month. We're in some serious doo-doo, and we need some really creative, practical, functional ideas from our leaders, because tax cuts and spending, well, tax rises and spending cuts aren't going to cut it. I appreciate you for watching. Thank you so much. This is, again, I was going to do this as a recorded video, but I haven't had time to. Just it's been crazy over the past week or so, and this week is even more stacked than last week. But thank you so much for your comments live. I'm just going to scan these really quickly here. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you haven't already smashed the like button, also consider doing that. It just means that other people also get to hear what we've spoken about here. I'm just scanning through the comments right here. Someone's just saying they're squeezing people. Let's just read this one out. Squeezing people who are willing and able to invest money long term to reduce their burden on the system later, whilst making contributions through NI the entire time. Yeah, someone's also saying here, historically, they'll always think of a new excuse on why things are still not better. I would agree to that to a certain extent. Someone just saying here, can't trust their reassurances. Someone saying here, it's austerity disguised as something else. I mean, we're not using that word austerity, are we? But how else would you describe it? The hit for this will eventually trickle down to the end user and not the business. Rates on pensions are nearly a really slippery slope, especially with state pension being more uncertain as a future concept. I would agree with that. I mean, this is, again, whilst this seems like a very simple idea, if they pass it on to business, it will end up being the customer in some way, shape, or form, and the employees who will pay for this at the end of the day. So it all comes down to individual people like you and I, end users, that are going to pay for this. This comment is spot on. Norman's just saying here, what's your view on buying silver as a long-term investment? I think commodities right now, gold, silver, precious metals, those kind of things. I mean, gold went through its record, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So a nice hedge and a safe haven, I would say at this point. Kicking the can down the road is what has got us in this mess. I would not disagree with you on that. Someone just saying here, why not have the public sector foot the bill? They have all the perks. That's a really good question. Why not have the public sector? Well, the money, if they did that, they've got to find money to fund it, haven't they? Which is the big problem. They haven't got the money to fund it. So I guess what they're thinking is that the private sector will be able to they'll find the money to fund it at the expense of their customers and employees. Someone just saying, targeting pension contributions is a really slippery slope and will encourage people to spend now and think later. If there is an incentive in investing for the future, then why bother? If there is no incentive, I would agree with you, and that's my biggest fear in this conversation. You need to leave pension contributions and pensions, generally speaking, alone. We already have a bigger problem. Anything you do now is only going to make that bigger problem worse, because I can tell you from 4 years doing this now, talking about pensions, people are already skeptical, but I feel like people are more knowledgeable than 4 years ago. And I see that when I speak to people. I look at it in the comment section when people DM me. People are more knowledgeable, people are more engaged. When you do something like this, you potentially undo all of the good work that have got people aware of, okay, I need to be doing this for my future, because the state pension might not be around. I mean, how can we be this short-sighted? It's desperation. That's what it is. And I really do struggle with it. Hopefully, again, this is just conjecture at this point. Hopefully this does not come in. But it's an option that will be on the table, and I'm sure she's looking at all of them. Anyway, guys, I have to go. Thank you so much for joining me. Sorry if I didn't get to read out your comments live. I'll try and do a few more of these. I do like doing them. I like doing them live. But sometimes when I record it, edit it, I can literally just be out doing things. And this week is really, really busy. So thank you so much. And again, if you've not already smashed the like button, please do so. I know it's a small thing, but it really does help with other people getting to see the video, because the YouTube algorithm will see it as something that people got value from. And if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I'll catch you later on. Cheers, guys. Thanks.